We are going to move from the stern and start working on the bow. It must be an age thing, because I've read these things so many times, and I've gone to the photographs that are on the various websites, and I have to tell you, I'm struggling to understand the instruction. The first piece that comes off of the bow is the bollard timbers, and this is what it will look like when it's completed. But of course, it took me close to a month to finally get one of these right. So let's start at the beginning. But before we do that, we need to finish off the stem head, which is here. And to do that, we're going to follow the instructions exactly as laid out in the book. This is a 20-inch piece of dowel with a 3/8 inch, in this case, aluminum sleeve. We've wrapped the sleeve. That will give us 20 inches, including the thickness of the sandpaper. I'm shooting this upside down. This line here is the line I'm using to guide where this is placed, and that's my take on it, which is roughly just about 14 inches as you come back. And you simply do that sort of action. So we simply put a piece of sticky 100 grit sandpaper, stick it on, and start to sand. It's almost impossible to see, but that's it right there. We are now going to cut the bollard timbers, or knighthead, as it's referred to in the book. And to do that, we're going to cut it out of 12-inch board. So the first thing we look at is these are the front pieces that make up the bow of the boat. We're going to transcribe using the French rulers. Really pretty good at doing this. And here is the template which we're going to stick onto the board. And leave that for a few minutes to dry, and then we can cut it on the scroll saw. Before we do that, we're going to check the rabbet on the stem head. And to do this, we've made up a template, and this template has been adjusted. You do a separate one for both sides, and now we compare the template to the stock we're about to cut, and we see it's very slight adjustment. And so we just flatten that out a little bit. I'm going to cut the 34.5 degree on the heel. I'm going to do this on the grinder, so I'm actually just going to cut the part out without making any angle cuts at this point in time. You can use a chisel, a grinder, or in my case I'm going to actually use this little spoke shave that I bought years ago to take the bulk of the rough work out. We've carved this down by hand. Now we're going to put the 34.5 degree angle on the heel, and so we're just going to set the grinder. Finally got an angle tool that can set this, so this is set at 34.5 degrees, and we simply place it in the grinder, and then we're going to machine it down. Obviously I've done this already, so I'm just really showing you what it looks like. And now we're going to grind the inside line, which is the dotted line here, which has been transferred to the back. We're cleaning it up and it's starting to take shape. We use the hand sander, which is just a dowel with a piece of sandpaper on it. And this is our first dry fit. Before we go any further, we're going to read some more just to make sure that we get it right. We're about to take the 3/4 inch off the bollard timber, so we've mounted it on the Sherline milling machine. 3/4 inch scaled down in metric is 0.397, a really very tiny space. So we're going to use this setting here to determine the depth of cut. We have finished the cut. We will put the 45 degree on after. The bevel here is 45 degrees. We've got the two air spaces repeated. I pin them together with temporary dowels, and you'll see that the insides really don't line up exactly with each other. both the starboard and the port sides pieces should be identical. And the only exception would be on the front side, because the rabbet might be different, and in this case they are slightly different. I'm not going to try and line these up, but I'm certainly going to try and make sure that the insides are exactly the same. And to do that, we're just going to take one of these Japanese knives and try and balance them out, and then sand it. I found that these curves were actually slightly different, so I used the rotary sander to take them down, and now the insides are exactly the same. Now it's all cleaned up and looks like it's ready to install. You will remember when we made up the stem head assembly that the top piece is larger than the bottom piece. So when we go to fit the bollard timbers, we have to sand them to fit. To be able to sand this accurately, you need to pin the bollard timbers to the stem assembly. So I used my drill press and drilled 2 holes through the bollards and into the stem assembly that allows me to get this in place each time I fit it back. So that's most important, and the only way you're going to accurately get this to seat tight against the stem assembly. That's now done, and when we take the measurement, we're still about 1.5 inches wider, but according to the book that's alright. We will try and take it down on the side a little bit afterwards. The section is now complete.